Hi, this is Aries Vodiax, reading Mastermind, Strategist for Hire, by Myheadinthecloudsnotcomingdown. Starting with today, Chapter 5. But before we begin, I just want to thank everyone who's stuck with me for this long, because I know I probably promised something like I'd upload every week for as long as I still had chapters until it was done, but I'm not very good with schedules. At all. And quarantine and everything is just throwing me off. So if I manage to keep that, I guess great. But if you stuck with me through a promise I haven't kept, thank you so much. I'm a little bit of a mess. Anyway, without further ado, Mastermind, Strategist for Hire, Chapter 5, First Meetings. Chapter Summary. Izuku finally sits down and has a chat with Jiran. It had been a week since Jiran started following him, and Izuku was beginning to get frustrated. The guy was supposedly one of the best brokers in the underground, and was obviously good enough to find him, so 1 week should be more than enough time for him to confirm his suspicions. Izuku knew that he didn't really look the part of a villain, because what criminal mastermind lets himself be bullied every day, but come on! It was with these thoughts that Izuku decided to deviate from his normal daily routine, a routine that Jiran should be familiar with at this point if he was paying any attention. Hopefully his annoying stalker would come out of the woodwork if given a good enough opportunity. If not, Izuku might just walk right up to the guy and punch him in the face. Actually, he winced as he thought back to his inability to fight against his bullies. Probably not. Izuku wound his way through the city, heading in the opposite direction from Dagoba Beach. It was a part of the city that he was only familiar with through maps, meaning that there wouldn't be anyone there who would recognize him. And it was a medium better part of town, meaning that with any luck, there wouldn't be anyone there who would recognize Jiran either. A nice, neutral territory for a first meeting. The cafe Izuku walked into had good reviews, but he honestly didn't care about how good their coffee was. What Izuku cared about was that it was busy this time of day, which meant there was enough ambient noise that he and Jiran would be able to talk without being overheard. And there was the added bonus that no one would be suspicious over two strangers sharing a table. Izuku walked up to the counter and gave his order. Now, all that was left was for his stalker to take the bait. It didn't take long at all for Jiran to enter the cafe, at least considering how long he'd stubbornly insisted on following Izuku. If Izuku was considering messaging the guy to just come inside. The boy watched the broker wait in line out the corner of his eye, chuckling when he noticed that Jiran had even put out his ever-present cigarette. He was halfway through his coffee when Jiran slid into the seat across from him. "I was wondering if you were ever going to actually talk to me." A look of shock briefly passed over the broker's face before he let out a surprised laugh. "You knew I was following you." "I make a living being more observant than most people. Of course I knew." Izuku took another sip of his coffee. "What I don't know is why you insisted on observing for a full week before coming to talk to me. You must have had pretty good intel on who I was. Watching my daily routine wasn't going to change that." Jiran chuckled and shook his head. "Well, it took me a week to be sure I had the right guy. And even now you're sitting here confirming it, and I'm still not sure." Izuku hummed. "Yeah, I guess my whole weak and innocent act does tend to throw people off. If it almost fooled you, then just imagine what the heroes will be thinking when they have their pride on the line." Jiran smiled. "Now there's the ruthless mastermind we know and love. You've been doing pretty well for yourself online from what I've heard, but you know you're not going to be able to hide in the shadows forever, right?" Izuku sighed and put down his cup. "Yeah, the copycats are already starting to get on my nerves." He reached into his bag and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. "That's why I need your help. You are the best at what you do, right?" Chiron raised his eyebrow as he took the folder and began looking through it. There was a design for a villain costume and a list of weapons that Izuku thought he'd need, including a lot of knives. The broker looked over the design silently for a few minutes, then nodded.
This should be doable, but I should warn you that this'll cost you a pretty penny. The weapons especially.
You know what my rates are, Chiron. I can afford it. Plus, I'll even let you introduce me to a few of the contexts you've been hounding me about. Chiron smiled.
You sure know how to tell a man what he wants to hear. I'll start calling around, but you'll be packing some serious heat.
Chiron pulled out the weapons list and placed it in front of Izuku.
Are you sure you know how to use all these?
Izuku shook his head. Not yet. That's actually the last thing I need your help with. Chiron cocked his eyebrow, still smiling, and gestured for him to continue. I want to meet Himiko Toga. That wiped the smile off the broker's face.
The serial killer?
He asked in shock. Izuku nodded. You've followed me, so I trust you know about my quirk situation. Chiron nodded hesitantly. Well, since I don't have a quirk to fall back on, I'm going to have to rely primarily on weapons. Knives are the best option for both close combat and ranged, once you factor in throwing knives, and there's no one better than Toga when it comes to knives. I want her to teach me how to fight. Chiron was solemn now.
I hate to ask it, but what if she kills you?
Izuku just smiled, wondering if it made him just a little bit crazy that he was asking to be trained by a serial killer. I think I can hold my own. Besides, you won't let her kill me. I'll be making you too much money. Izuku started to get up to leave, but Chiron grabbed his arm.
Before you leave, I have a gift for you.
He grabbed a laptop bag from the floor and put it on the table.
This is a top of the line, virtually untraceable. Internet cafes are great and all, but I think you'll agree this is the easier option.
Izuku booted up the computer and looked it over. It was nice and really would make his work much easier. He quickly checked to make sure that there wasn't any tracking apps or spyware installed before closing it. Meanwhile, Chiron had pulled out a simple smartphone.
This is also untraceable. I already have the number and put my contact info in as well. I'll text you an address later when your gear is ready and you can pick it up. I'll also text you when I manage to get a hold of Toga. She's slippery, but shouldn't be too hard to find. I'll be honest, I really hope you know what you're doing.
Izuku just tucked the phone in his pocket and slung the laptop bag over his shoulder as he stood and grabbed his cup. If I didn't, I wouldn't have chosen to call myself Mastermind. Chiron watched the boy leave.
This kid is crazy.
His smile turned greedy.
Look out, heroes. Mastermind is here to stay.
This has been Chapter 5 of Mastermind, Strategist for Hire, by Myheadinthecloudsnotcomingdown. Read to you by Eris Wodiacs. See you next time!